Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Can you hear us? I am Perpetrator 3169. This is Ash.
I'm Ash.
How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm gonna check the Twitch, make sure we can hear everybody okay.
Okay.
I'm always paranoid about that.
The volume.
The volume of my voice. Can we make this echo? The volume of my voice. The volume of my voice. The volume of my voice. Okay, that obviously works. All right, today's episode, we're talking about Folklore, which is another edition of Spooky October.
Yes. Spooky.
Ooh. We're going to start out tonight with the least creepy, I think, which is the Moon-Eyed People.
I think that's way creepy.
You think that's way creepy? Okay, what do you think's the creepiest?
The creepiest?
Or the least creepy, I'm sorry.
Either Wisps or Changelings.
Okay. We'll do Wisps. Okay, go for it. So, let's see if you change your mind about Wisps. Alright. We did this based on our heritage. Okay. Wisps, I am English. And wisps, they come from all of the British area, like all up and down that area. So, their full name is Will of the Wisps. They are ghost lights that are seen by travelers, mostly when they're next to bogs and marshes and swamps.
Mm-hmm.
And they're most famous. Have you seen that movie Brave?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're kind of popular from that now because she follows the wisps to the witch's house, and that's how she turns her mom into a bear. Her mom into a bear.
Mm-hmm.
But
then also how she unturns her mom into a bear.
Right. But the lore is that these wisps are mischievous. So, specifically in Wales, they say that they're actually puka, which are like goblin-like,
Mm-hmm.
and they're holding the light, and you can't see them because they're like a mile away.
Mm-hmm.
You can only see the light because it's all misty, and they're like running from you, and they're working on your sense of like you want to help somebody.
Right.
And so you go and you're following this light, and then all of a sudden you don't know where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Or
you drown in a fucking bog.
Yeah, right. So one of the tales they tell is of a peasant traveling at dusk. He sees this light, a bright light ahead. The light turns out to be a lantern held by a dusky little figure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He follows this light for several miles, and he eventually finds himself standing above a chasm, flowing water, and a roaring torrent of water.
Mm-hmm.
And this figure suddenly jumps over this chasm, lifts the light over his head, laughs a mischievous laugh, and puts the light out.
Oh.
So, now this guy is in the middle of nowhere, pitch black,
Yeah.
doesn't know where he is, over a chasm of roaring water.
Dope.
Yeah.
The ideal situation is
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Right.
Okay.
Right. A lot of people say that they are omens of for death, because they can either be, because this folklore is pretty old, it's pretty widespread, but they're either spirits who've been caught in the afterlife, or they are also believed to be stillborn children. Yeah. And it's kind of interesting too, because it even evolves up and down the British Isles.
Yeah.
In parts of Wales, they're known for making noises, screeching noises, kissing noises, to trick the people who are hearing or seeing the light, or they'll make a noise and then it'll make you feel like what was that? Or the kissing noises they were talking about making parents think that their kids in the back of the carriage were making out, and making them mad at the kids in the back of the carriage.
Oh.
They also said that they would make horses, neighing horses, horses.
Yeah.
So that the horses would run away. Even to the point where they could shapeshift and turn into horses, or link boys, where they would have people pay them for passage, like lit passage. And they also would make, light where, like when ships come in, they would pretend like it was where the harbor was, and they would cause shipwrecks.
Damn.
Yeah. One of the stories, too, was there was a sinister blacksmith. And God said, "You're too bad to come, to the gates of heaven." And he was like, "But I'll give you one more chance. You can walk the grounds of earth for eternal life if you just do good. And I'll give you another chance. You can come back." Well, he continued to do bad, and the devil was like, "All right, here's the thing. I'll keep you warm." And he gave him a burning coal to hold in his chest to keep him warm. And that is one legend, what one of the Wisps is. And he comes and he tricks people into coming and following him into the marshes. Yeah. And his name was Will. Will of the Wisps. So, that is the folklore of the Wisps. Do you think that's creepy?
Yeah, a little.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also kind of cute, though,
Yeah. They said it
just mischievous little fuckers.
They did say that they were kind of in a weird way related to like leprechauns and things like that. Like
Mhm.
they would kind of like evil little leprechauns, where if you caught the wisp, like they were supposed to be guarding a treasure, like in some of these. If you were if you caught the wisp, you would get the treasure.
Mhm.
But if you ever got there, they would say, well, you need the hand of the dead.
Mhm.
Like, how are you ever supposed to catch the wisp, though?
Yeah.
You know? And then by that time, you're like, what dead?
Yeah.
You know? It's like this unattainable goal.
Right.
You know? I mean, instead of being more, like, creepy, I think it's more, like, devilishly mischievous.
Yeah.
You know? It's not like
a Loki.
Yeah. And it doesn't really, like... None of the stories were really like, it's gonna bring you into the marsh and kill you.
Mhm.
It's just gonna bring you into the marsh. And, like...
That's the really interesting thing about, like, European folklore, is there's a lot of it that is, like, would, like, explain away an accidental death.
Yeah.
Or a suicide, or whatever. And that's the thing with most folklore.
Yeah.
Is that it's, you know, at the time that it originates, it's used to, like, explain things that people don't understand.
Well, and one of the things that they explain as people seeing it is because it's odd that it's like, oh, it's all by marshes and swamps and bodies of water,
Mm-hmm.
but mostly marshes and swamps. So the scientists are saying that it's caused by the gases that come up and
Mhm.
kind of kind of spontaneously, not spontaneously combust, but it's kind of like the shimmer of those gases coming up,
Yeah.
you know, and so it's kind of like the old way of explaining these lights that people are seeing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, kind of like you see rainbows in oil slicks.
Yeah.
You know, you're seeing something in these weird gases.
Yeah.
You know, but you can't explain it.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's, and I would assume, I don't know if this is true, this is my assumption, if you're standing in methane, if you're walking in methane gas.
You're going to be tripping a little bit?
Yeah. Because they're walking, you know, probably at the end of the day, they're probably walking 20 miles.
Yeah.
Around a marsh.
Mm-hmm.
They probably got something going on in their brain.
Yeah.
You know. I don't know. But it's just like probably the least creepy, I guess. What do you got?
Okay. Well, that was actually a little bit creepier than I thought it was going to be. Just so you know. So, I am Scotch-Irish on both sides of my family. And I, somewhere like 5 generations ago, Hopi Indian, which is strange. And then I grew up and currently live in the southwestern United States. So that's where my stories are coming from. I'm going to start with Changelings, which I have to say, like, the idea is still super creepy, but after researching this, it's actually, like, tragic and depressing. Still creepy, but also. Okay, so changelings are a broadly European folklore originating in the Middle Ages, and carrying on through about the mid-19th century. And
actually, that's kind of a short span.
Yeah.
Like, considering where it came from.
Mm-hmm. I think that it is, like, more lasting in certain regions than others, but regionally there are variations of the changeling lore, legend, tales, whatever you want to call them, across Wales, Scandinavia, Poland, Spain, Germany, Scotland, and Ireland. And most people are most familiar with the Irish version of changelings.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the creatures, like, the changeling creatures themselves, or where they come from, like what creatures they come from, vary by region. So, like, in Scandinavia, their version of changelings are trolls that live in a subterranean realm underground. And so when they abduct someone, that's where the person goes. And then there's also, like, regionally, Germany, the tales were based on water spirits and demons. I think Poland was trolls. And then I'm not sure about goblins, but that's another one that came up. And fairies are the most common origin for these stories that people are familiar with. Fairies.
That's pretty common in Ireland, Scotland, Wales, is the fairy theme.
Yeah.
I mean, they were calling the Wisps fairies.
Mm-hmm.
They called them fairy fire in Wales.
Yeah.
Yeah. And goblin fairies.
And then, of course, with the spread, the rampant, violent spread of Christianity, people then began to equate the changeling stories with just the devil. Just.
Like, throughout all of these episodes, okay, this is number 8. There's two commonalities. Egypt, Christianity. I don't think I have anything for Egypt for this episode. However, Christianity, flying in hot.
Yeah, and, Christians have a long history of fucking shit up for everyone, so. Okay, so there are obviously, like, along with the variations in creatures that changelings come from, there's variations in, like, what to do to prevent this from happening, or how to get rid of a changeling, or, like, just regionally, everybody has a slightly different version of the same lore. And so the people, I guess, like, most affected by changelings would be children.
Innocents.
Would be the most likely to be abducted and then replaced by a changeling. And that's why it's creepy. particularly, and I think this part also comes from the spread of Christianity, is unbaptized children.
Yeah.
And women, adult women. So, the reasons that people believed children would be abducted was to be like the fairies or goblins or whoever took them would raise them like their own, but having replaced them with their children.
Would they eventually re-replace them? Like,
only if you... So it's all very conditional. If you... A lot of people were under the assumption that if their child had been replaced by a changeling, if they, scared the changeling off by mistreating it, or if they killed it, then maybe they would get their child back.
Maybe.
There is one particular tale that I found where a woman her child was suspected of having been replaced by a changeling, and everyone in her village was like, well, you have to do this to it, you have to put it in the oven, you have to beat it, you have to, all these horrible things. And she, even though she thought that it might not be her child, she could not mistreat it because it was an innocent being, regardless.
Right.
And so in that tale, what happens is her child is returned to her by the fairies for having not mistreated their child.
Oh.
So, and there's a lot of different variations of outcomes just like that. But, so children are the most likely to be replaced by a changeling. And then second and third would be new mothers. And they would be abducted to nurse fairy children in the fairy realm.
You know what that explains? Postpartum.
And then new brides would be abducted to be married and bred with fairies or goblins or trolls or whoever.
Well, that explains back then, because they barely knew their wives, probably, and then right when they get married, they move in together, and so they probably didn't know that their wife was like that.
Yeah. Well, and historically, women have been accused of hysteria and delirium and all of these bullshit things because we have hormones that make us freak out sometimes. So,
well, because
but men don't help. I'm just saying.
You're saying men are just as emotional as women. They're just taller.
Right. They are actually more emotional, I feel like. So, creepiness. So along with the idea, due to the spread of Christianity, that demons were abducting children, of course, demons take your kid and then sacrifice your kid to the devil. Or the devil takes your kid and eats them. Or whatever. So for every variation, there's a different outcome or anticipation of.
Does he poop them too?
That is not covered
She's
in
checking
the lore.
She's checking her notes. Oh, I didn't see that.
So the theory of how to get rid of a changeling or to prevent someone from being abducted by one also varies by region. And varies by creature. So, like, trolls coming from underground were believed to fear iron. So, people would, like, stash iron items in their babies' cradles and stuff. Which seems way more unsafe than them getting stolen.
Wasn't there, like, isn't there some sort of, like, thing you can get from having too much iron? I don't know if that's
I think so, yes. Iron is one of those things where you can, like,
have too much
or too little. But iron items, like an iron knife or...
Well, you know what? That could be linked to iron deficiency. Mm-hmm. They could have been like, oh, well. You know.
Right.
Anyway.
Also, you know, like, there's theories about, like, burning a fire in your child's room or placing the cradle next to a fireplace, or which all of these things seem to increase the risk to your child. But, you know, it was the Middle Ages and people have always been stupid, so.
You wonder about the infant mortality rate back then.
Well, here's where things get tragic. Okay, so the main theory to get rid of a changeling, if you suspect your wife or husband, or very uncommonly a husband, wife or child, of being a changeling, is to torture them in some way, which resulted often in real child abuse.
Right.
And people killing their kids.
Because they thought it would bring back the real child.
Mm-hmm. But also, because in the Middle Ages there was this idea of family survival, and kids needed to be able-bodied enough to work just the same as adults.
Mm-hmm.
So people, you know, if you had a kid that had a disability or a deformity or some kind of deficiency that made them unable to work alongside the family, mm-hmm. then it was too harmful to the family unit to keep the kid around. So then that's kind of where like the idea of this lore came from.
Yeah.
Is to excuse, again, shit that people don't understand, like disabilities and birth defects and deformities and diseases and all kinds of things. And sorry, I lost my place. So, like, the stories of changelings were presumably invented to excuse the mistreatment of
when I did my
children that were considered less than.
Yeah. When I did my birthday episode, we were talking about how, and this has come up a couple of times now, how, like 100, even 150 years ago, the value of a child was to work. Mm-hmm. And now, the value of a child is to, there's more value in a child for emotional value. And so that's why we don't have that, it seems relating, it relates why we don't have as many folklores that people believe in now. Mm-hmm. Well, hi. I'm trying to figure out what that means. Oh, this planet. I thought you were talking about, like, some weird horoscope thing. How are you? I thought you meant like the tapestry of life.
The tapestry of life.
Yeah. And I was like, that. My forecast does not seem very good.
Yeah, so, and then the last thing that I wanted to mention, which I found really interesting, was that during the raids, of, you know, like Nordic people, Vikings, even going so far back as like the Romans raiding, the Celtic regions of Europe, they forced a lot of clans into hiding, and hidden people would commonly swap their children out with any children in a raider camp.
I had the best trebuchets.
And so that's actually like part of where the idea of changelings came from.
That's really sad.
Yeah.
Like, and because it's real, I think that's what makes it really, like, people actually killing people.
Kids.
Yeah, kids
Children.
and women. I think that's why it's actually not just, it's not creepy, it's scary.
Well, and then using, like, a folk tale
Yeah.
to excuse
You're not-
abandoning and or murdering children.
Yeah. You're not real. I'll kill you now. No, that's...
But, side note, there is a great Irish film called A Hole in the Ground about changelings, and it's kind of a slow burn,
Is that
but it's
one
totally worth it, and I recommend it.
that one on Netflix?
Yes.
I wanted to see that one. I still haven't seen it.
Well, I think I watched it on Prime, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Or the kid, he looks like the kid from that chess movie. But let's see, we have more concern. What? Zombies. Okay,
Okay, what do you have?
moon-eyed people. Okay.
Is that okay?
So, moon-eyed people, this is something that also debatable, may or may not be true.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I am from Virginia. Okay.
Ew. No, I'm
Okay.
just kidding.
Okay. There's like Western Virginia. And then there's Virginia, which is close to DC. I was from there, so it's not as bad. Okay. There's like caveat. But the moon-eyed people in the Appalachian Mountains. Okay. They apparently there were a tribe of people who were short, round, with beards and blue eyes, who lived in the area before white people came to America.
Did they all have beards?
I don't think the women did.
Okay.
So the legend has it that the reason they're called moon-eyed is because they could not see during the daytime. They could only come out at night.
Mm-hmm.
During certain moon phases, they couldn't come out either. They couldn't see then either. And they lived in caves.
Mm-hmm. Wait. Is this where moonshine comes from?
No.
Okay.
Now that we have that cleared up. They were not, I mean, technically they were cavemen, but they weren't the cavemen that we all know today. But my understanding is they lived in caves because they could not deal with the daylight.
Okay.
And because the Native Americans were very, very violent towards them.
Okay.
And so during one of these moon phases where they couldn't see, the Cherokee, legend has it, the Cherokee came and violently, raided them and either killed them or,
Drove them away.
drove them away.
Okay.
Okay? So how do we know if this is true or not? There are multiple ways. So there's some ruins in Virginia. There's a wall that is said to be their ruins.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a tale of the Welsh coming over in 1170, and his name is Maddoc Aboyne Gwynlyn. His name was Maddoc. And his brother came over allegedly in 1170.
Okay.
And even left people here and went back to Wales.
Okay.
To get more people.
So this is like pre-colonialism.
Like 400, 500 years before colonialism. And so they're saying that there's a theory that it could have been them, because think about how close that is to the coast.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying it's an albino race, and who are the ancestors of these explorers. And when the colonizers came, there was a Welsh, Welsh person with the British,
Mm-hmm.
and he could interpret the Monacan language. It was so close to that language that he could interpret it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's thinking that, they're thinking that there was a race of, these descendants of these Welsh people,
Mm-hmm.
and then they merged with the Cherokee around, right around when they got there.
Yeah.
And then, so it's, might be true.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Smith Barton in 1797, he spoke with this Welsh interpreter, and he said, the Cherokee tell us that when they first arrived in the country which they inhabit, they found it possessed by certain people who could not see in the daytime. These wretches they expelled. Yeah. So this one's not like really too creepy. It's just like wondrous.
Like
it's
a
weird.
lost civilization.
Yeah.
Kind of.
And it was it's weird because it's kind of like they were defenseless. It's just kind of like, it's almost like Sasquatch.
Or what if they just went deeper underground?
Yeah.
And became like weird goblin creatures, like in that one movie.
Well, they're also saying that there were some, the Adena culture in Ohio, that they could have merged with them as well, which is kind of like them. So it could have just been like, they could have, gone, just kind of melting potted it.
Yeah.
I mean, if my idea is if you have, if you only have two, like, you have indigenous and non-indigenous, I mean, it's not going to take very long to kind of blend that out, right?
Right.
Make it, especially if there's only like 20 of them. I mean, like, I doubt they really disappeared. They either all died, or they just kind of merged into
other groups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if they didn't have a civilization. I bet the moon-eyed thing is probably just, they were too scared to come out because, they were getting attacked all the time.
Yeah.
But, and the Cherokee, not just the Cherokee, but, Native Americans definitely have oral traditions, and rather than, literary traditions. So throughout the first real account of this was in 1797. So if they came in 1170, I mean, that's what, 600 years later? That's 600 years of people, the Cherokee talking about this. Right, and kind of embellishing, about these people.
Yeah. Well, I feel like, I don't think, like, if you look at folklore, usually people aren't making up, like, whole civilizations of people.
Yeah.
Unless it was like a Lord of the Rings situation where they invented,
like a story.
new species and languages and whatever, like, I think it could be true.
Well, I think it could be true, but I think it's probably embellished.
Yeah.
For instance, it's probably, they were probably like, oh, why does a ghost, or something like that, but it's probably, they've never seen anything like that before.
Yeah.
And never since for, 300 years.
Right.
So, it was...
Which is kind of fucked up, too, because that was probably the first white people they ever saw.
Yeah. So...
They're like, go live in the caves.
Yeah. It's really...
But also, do you think there would be... what are the odds with how uncommon albinoism is? What are the odds that there was, a whole group
I don't think they were albino.
Okay.
I really don't think they were. I think it was... Looking at it objectively, I think it was... if that guy... If it was the Welsh... Because there are some other theories, the Vikings came over, earlier than that.
Right.
But, if it was those Welsh people, they're Welsh people are basically Scottish and Irish, or they're white as the as white as you.
Rude.
With blue eyes. I mean,
Right.
like,
Mm-hmm.
so, I mean, they're probably, and they're not known for being tall. They're not, I mean, especially compared to, I think, Native Americans are pretty tall. Cherokee, I think, are pretty,
Mm-hmm.
considered pretty tall. Especially if they're malnourished.
Mm-hmm. Well, like sea voyaging usually resulted in malnourishment.
Yeah. So, and if they're, only coming out at night because they're afraid of getting attacked.
Yeah.
They're going to be even more pale.
They had to retreat to the caves to recover from the horrific sunburns they got sailing across.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so it's just, it's probably not embellished. It's probably they just didn't understand.
Yeah.
Like, if you never saw, like, anything like that before, you'd have to come up with something, like, to figure out what it was.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But, I mean, and they never saw anything. If you were a Welsh person, you would have never seen anything like that yourself.
Right.
Like, and you'd be scared shitless. I'd be like, let's go in that cave and stay there. And you're like, you're fucking leaving? What?
Yeah.
Probably to someone, to both sides, they probably looked all the same.
Mm-hmm.
Blue eyes, white. They probably all had beards because they didn't have anything to shave with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's interesting is that they found, like, ruins, and wasn't there an artifact found as well? Like a carving or kind of like a statue or something?
Yeah, but I think that was made after, like, it wasn't with the ruins or anything like that.
Oh, okay.
It was like,
But there weren't any remains found.
Right. There weren't any artifacts, like, of clothing or of anything like that, no.
There's or like human remains.
Right. Yeah.
Because it could have been like a Donner Party situation too. Like,
yeah.
One guy ate everybody else.
Well, it was in the mountains.
Yeah.
I mean, and if you're not prepared for that,
yeah,
it's pretty cold. But, yeah, I don't think it's very, I don't think that one's very creepy or scary. I think it's just kind of like...
Interesting.
Yeah. And there wasn't too much that would... Like, anywhere I looked, it wasn't very elaborated.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was nothing much more than that.
Right.
It was just kind of like a little factoid, and then...
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, okay, nobody's going to look into this?
Yeah, and it's kind of like the less information you can find about it, the more interesting it is.
Yeah.
Like, why are people not talking about this?
Yeah. I'm going to look at the X-Files version. What do you got?
Okay. I think we saved the creepiest for last.
Yeah.
Okay, so... Again, a tiny bit of Native American heritage, and having grown up and lived the majority of my life in the Southwest, we are going to talk about skinwalkers. Okay, what do you know about skinwalkers?
That we're all gonna die. And it's gonna be her fault.
No, you don't know that.
I don't know that.
Not yet.
Something about you have to kill an animal, and then they take the shape of the animal, or no, the shape of you.
No.
Bury it.
No. Okay, let me tell you. Okay, so the legend of the Skinwalkers
Okay.
originated amongst the Navajo people. And the Skinwalkers have also been referred to as the Native American boogeyman. Oh, spooky.
Don't make fun of them, they might kill you.
There are... Oh, just wait. There are different... So again, as with most folklore, there's different variations of the story, the legend, the myth, the whatever you want to call it. Between... So, like, Skinwalkers originated with Navajo people.
Okay.
However, there are variations on what Skinwalkers are and how they become Skinwalkers and so on and so forth between like Navajo, Pueblo, Apache, Hopi, and the Ute tribes.
Because they're all, like, within kind of, like, all within the southwestern region. Yes.
Right.
Like Ute, Hopi, Navajo, what other one?
Ute,
Yeah.
Apache, Pueblo.
Apache. Yeah, they're all, like...
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait, this is a backward. It's like this.
Well, the really interesting thing that makes this a bit more plausible than a lot of folklore is that...
More plausible than moon-eyed people.
Yes. Is that this legend began with Navajo people, and they deemed this topic so taboo that they don't discuss it with anyone outside of their tribe. Yet, these other tribes also talk about Skinwalkers. So, if the Navajo people didn't tell these other tribes about it, how is this a thing? Okay. So,
People like you, that's how.
let's get into
Spreading the creep-ass word, that's how. Trying to get us all killed.
Okay, so there are different kinds of witches in Native American culture, and they're really just like a
witch?
staple. Hold on. They are just a staple of the culture, like witchcraft, like healers or shaman or medicine men or we'll go with medicine people because they can be a man or a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are people that, sometimes it's an evolution of a person from, like, a community healer that uses, like, magic and spells and, all the different tools that they use for good. Then
magic.
Suddenly they will decide to use it to harm people. And so when a person is corrupted and begins using rituals and tools and basically magic for evil or to harm others or whatever, that usually sets them on the path to becoming a skinwalker. So, A skinwalker is a malevolent witch that gains their power by breaking a cultural taboo, usually killing a member of their family.
I think you did tell me this before.
Yeah. So that's how they gain power, and by killing a member of their family. They can also achieve this by committing other heinous acts of evil. But most commonly it's killing somebody in their own family. They can then transform into any animal at will.
Oh, that's where I got the animal thing from.
Using their power to wreak havoc on enemies. So, there's a couple things about the animal aspect of this. And it is, so really skinwalkers are where a lot of like, not like the European werewolf lore, but like a lot of other creature lore in the United States comes from this.
Like what?
Like the Wendigo. There's one in Louisiana, and I always forget what it's called, but it's like a swamp werewolf. And I think even the Chupacabra hailed from skinwalkers. And pretty much like any Americanized version of werewolves came from skinwalkers. The lore of skinwalkers. So, not only can skinwalkers transform into animals, they can also control creatures of the night.
Like
and
coyotes?
Use them to do their bidding.
Like coyotes?
So, yes. So, typically, the most common forms that skinwalkers will take are of predators.
Or like, so like pumas and...
So, like coyotes, wolves, foxes, cougars, dogs, like black dogs, is the most common report that people like have made
all
of
y'all's with some black labs
with a skinwalker. But they can, and bears even, and they can take the shape of any animal. So there's like accounts of bird, like raven skinwalkers, eagles. But typically, so they will choose the animal that they're going to transform into based on like the abilities that animal has for them to complete some sort of task.
Okay, example.
So, say like they wanted to fuck somebody up.
I want to scratch your eyeballs out. Eagle. Wah!
Yeah. And then say that they were creeping on somebody as one form, right? Like a fox. And somebody was like, Skinwalker!
It could be like,
then
I'm flying away!
They can transform into a different animal at will that's faster to escape somebody pursuing them. They can also, like I said, they can control creatures of the night, like owls and wolves and, nocturnal creatures to do their bidding.
When you say control, so they could be an eagle and control another animal?
Hell yeah.
So you can be an eagle being like, bear, go get that bitch. Like,
yeah. Or you can be a bear and be like, eagle, fuck them up so I can catch them. Yeah. So, in their human form, they will wear the skins and pelts of the animals that they transform into. Okay, and even sometimes wear like an animal skull on their head.
So, like, if they had turned into a bear, hello, Cannon.
Canan.
So if they were like a bear, and then they were like, I'm turning into a human, they would have, like, be wearing a bear vest or something. Mm-hmm. Or, like on The Simpsons, how Monty Burns had his gorilla vest.
I guess, yeah. So, here's another really creepy
Monty
thing.
Burns
and
is a skinwalker.
How you identify a skinwalker when they are in their animal form is that their eyes remain distinctly human.
When they're in animal?
Yeah.
Imagine if he turned into a goat.
A goat with human eyes?
Yeah.
Like, goat eyes aren't fucking freaky enough?
Yeah, and then you, like, see a goat with human eyes, and you're like, ah!
Oh, my God. Okay. So, there are ways to kill a skinwalker.
Knife.
But there are two very particular ways to do it. So,
killing it.
Successful killing of a skinwalker generally requires the aid of a powerful shaman who can use spells and rituals to turn the skinwalker's evil against itself.
So, like,
also,
it's like good witch against bad witch.
Yeah. You can use white ash to deter.
Come with me, my friend. That's why you've never been.
Myself, white ash you can use white ash to deter a skinwalker, but you can also dip a bullet in white ash, and if you shoot them in the head or the neck, you will kill them.
Wouldn't you be so fucking afraid to just, like, shoot a skinwalker? You'd be like...
So, there are a lot of, like, skinwalker encounter stories that you can find, and usually they happen on Native American reservations. Because, you know, that's where people are more likely to believe in it, I guess. Or maybe it's real.
Okay, where did I get the burying in the yard thing?
Okay, so there are different versions of the skinwalker across different tribes, and there are different versions of how they affect people. So, like, the Navajo version of a skinwalker, right? They're going to use magic and maybe even turn into an animal and fucking kill you. But then, and I'm not sure what tribe this version comes from, but I was told by a friend as a teenager, a Native American friend that lived on an Indian reservation in New Mexico, that there is another version of a skinwalker that rather than taking the form of an animal, they remain in their human form but behave very animalistically, and they tend to So how they will, like, they won't typically attack somebody outright, but they will, like, carve objects out of animal bones.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
bury them on the property of their enemy or perceived enemy, to place a curse on everyone that lives there. And the only way to remove the curse is to find the object and destroy it. Also, that along with their retaining human form but behaving as animals, they will crawl around on their elbows and their knees, which, if you think about that, is very disturbing. Yeah.
It's very, like, The Thing-esque.
Yeah. Yeah. So, story time.
Okay.
Okay. When I was told the story that I just told you, the version of the Skinwalker story, I was like 17 or 18, hanging out at a park that I went to regularly, and this kid told me this story. Told me this story and nothing else about, like, skinwalkers or the rules or anything, right? 6 months later, I am at this same park at night, and I told you about how there's, like, arroyos, which are just big concrete ditches that run directionally east and west across the city of Albuquerque, where I grew up. And they are built to divert water, and as a child you are taught to stay away from them because there are, like, New Mexico gets not floods but flash floods, where it will just very suddenly and unexpectedly flood, and that's what the arroyos are for.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're strongly discouraged from, like, walking in them or playing in them or whatever. And some of these ditches, arroyos, break off at different points throughout the city where, you know, like this park that I was at, you could walk from within the park into the arroyo and then follow it. And there are bike trails that run along the arroyo, but basically you're, like, if you're inside of an arroyo, you are in a 12 plus foot deep concrete channel. And I'm at the park where I heard the Skinwalker story. But it's been 6 months, not thinking about Skinwalkers. Whatever. I probably forgot about it up until that night. So I go walking down the arroyo, which you're not supposed to do because it's dangerous. I'm walking with my friend. And so the streets run over the arroyos. So when you're down in the arroyo, it's like you're walking under a bridge. And we walk under one bridge, no problem. 2 bridges, no problem. 3rd bridge, and there is a degree of darkness under this bridge that immediately my friend and I are like, let's fucking go back. So we start, like, really walking back toward the park. And we are not speaking. We are just walking. And we both stop dead in our tracks because we both hear footsteps behind us. turn around, nothing there. Except darkness. So we proceed, walking a little bit faster. And we're walking, silently walking. And we hear footsteps. And we both freeze, look at each other. My friend looks back, still nothing. I pick up like a rock or like a broken piece of concrete, just in case I have to bash something's face in. And we start fucking power walking. And then all of a sudden, all the dogs in all the backyards up at the top of the arroyo start freaking the fuck out. Like snarling, growling, and barking. And I trust animals way more than I trust people. So I fucking book it up the ditch, back into the park, and I run to the middle of the park where there is a light, and I post up on top of this, like, waist-high wall, and I'm looking back the direction that I just ran from. And my friend is there with me, and we see something come out of the fucking ditch.
God. There. Was it running like this?
No, it was running, like, down on all fours. And then it stopped under the shadow of a tree. But the weird thing is that it did not look like it looked like a shadow. The thing itself was a shadow. In a shadow. And so we're sitting there watching this thing, and if you moved or, like, stood up, the thing would stand up. And if you, like, chilled out, it would, like relax, like, sit down. And so we sit there for probably, 20, 30 minutes, like, how the fuck are we gonna get out of this park?
Mm-hmm.
And what the fuck is that thing?
And it's just sitting there looking at you.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, if I click the thing on my car, all the lights on the car will turn on. And I think the light will keep the thing away.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is, as long as we're in the light. Okay?
That's like... She has the worst horror movie decision-making.
So I'm like, okay, here's the deal. I'm gonna click the thing on the car, and then we have like 3 minutes to haul ass to the car, get in it, fucking get out of here. And my friend's like, okay. And so I hop off the wall.
Never heard from again.
I hop off the wall.
Her old friend.
And I'm standing there, and the thing gets, it was like standing, and then it gets down, like ready to run. And I'm like, oh no. Okay. It's gonna chase us. Whatever it is, it's gonna chase us when we run to the car. And my friend's like, what the fuck do we do? And I'm like, we gotta run. And I start fucking booking it, running seriously faster than I've ever fucking run in my life. To the car, I get in the car, and I start driving, and my friend is not in the car yet.
I told you, dead. I told you. She fucking left him. So he's like screaming, wait, and I stop the car, but I'm like away from the curb in the middle of the road, and like an easy 15 feet I'm never
from where
going
I
to the
was.
fucking park with this bitch. Ever.
He opens the door, starts getting in, and I start driving before he's even like inside the car with the door closed. We did not look back, and I never went to that fucking park again. And I did not realize, and I'm going to tell you now what I did not know then. If you hear or talk about skinwalkers, they will come for you.
You motherfucker.
Happy Halloween.
Oh, what a... She just cursed us. She cursed us. If you hear, I done heard it.
You heard it. But you have white ash.
I have white ash.
To deter.
Alright, what did you think was interesting?
The wisp thing was interesting, and I recognize, obviously, from movies like Brave, but also, when you mentioned the ghost lights, in one of the Lord of the Rings movies, there's a part where where, like, Gollum is leading Frodo and Sam through a bog, and the bog is, like, full of dead bodies, and Gollum tells them, don't follow the lights.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So that was interesting.
Huh.
Also, I thought it was interesting the kind of, like, bits of correlation between the stories we both told.
I did think that was, like, how,
like the fairies in Europe.
Yeah.
And then the Native American involvement in the moon people thing. And then the skinwalkers.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all, like, it's weird how everything kind of is, like, the same everywhere, except for they just call it something different. You know?
Yeah.
Like, they were talking about the wisps. They have all that. They have that stuff here. They just call them orbs.
Yeah.
You know, like, and they call them jack-o'-lanterns. I mean, that's where they get the jack-o'-lantern.
And probably luminarias.
Yeah. Like.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just weird how, like, a lot of these over and over again in these episodes and things, it's all these things are, like, worldwide. You know, in some fashion. It's strange.
Yeah.
You know. But, yeah.
What did you think was interesting?
On a micro scale, the, you know, Navajo, Apache, Ute, how they all had the same, you know, and it was the same with the wisp thing, how they all had the same thing.
Well, even the changelings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's all different. You know. I also, the Moon-Eyed people, I thought it was interesting that there was a lack of interest.
Yeah.
Like, when I was looking up a bunch of stuff to kind of settle on a thing, there, you know, when you look into legends or folklore or whatever, it's just kind of like not much. Like, it'll give you a little blurb, and every place has that same blurb. And you're just like...
I feel like the two that I did are a little more widely known, probably.
Yeah.
And so there's, like, a lot of information, and there is a lot of the same information everywhere, but the Skinwalker thing was surprisingly easy to find, like, very specific information about.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't even remember now what website it was, but the entire website is solely based to Native American culture.
Yeah.
And they had, you know, a full page, web page of information about Skinwalkers and the variations of the stories. And
I feel like the Wisps had some information, like more information. But I think a lot of that stuff, like the Changelings and stuff, I didn't look into that, but things like that, I feel like you would have to go to a library or something and pull out a book.
Yeah.
And read a book.
Well, also, like, things that are so culturally specific, like Changelings are most specific to Celtic groups.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the websites that you'll find information about them on are Irish-based websites or Scottish-based websites or, .uk websites.
Well, and, I mean, really, the reason why you're not getting a lot of this information is because it's all oral tradition. Like, how do you write...
Yeah.
How do you write down every single variation of what...
Mm-hmm.
Like the intricacies of every Skinwalker tale or every variation of the Wisps or, or Changelings,
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's why, it's so much more than a blurb, but,
Yeah.
you can't explain that, you can't portray that,
Mm-hmm.
But, anyway, that's what I learned. I thought it was all pretty interesting, though.
Yeah.
Like, follow, subscribe. I always forget. Damn it. Alright. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.